have the crew doing that either. So the crew, you'd have 2 steersmen who steered the boat, 2 bowsmen who would throw ropes and help lock through and things like that. They would help with the loading and unloading. You'd have 1 captain, 1 cook. Cook was usually the captain's wife, and he only needed 1 of those. So you'd have that, and then you'd have 2 hoagies or mule drivers and 2 sets of mules. And most often they worked 6-hour shifts, sometimes 8 hours. If the captain was a real jerk, they worked 10 hours, but usually 6 to 8 hours. So at the end of 6 hours, they'd pull over wherever they are for the shift change. If they were near a dock, they'd tie up to the dock. If they weren't near a dock, they'd put stakes in the ground, tie up to the stakes. They'd put a gangplank out. It's about 1.5 to 2 feet wide, and the mules would go out, the fresh mules. While they were tying up to the tow line up front, tired mules and their hoagie would come back in. They'd get a 6-hour rest in the stable. And then when the mules were tied up there, usually took about 10 minutes per stop. And after that, the boat would be on its way. They'd pick up the stakes and they'd be on their way. So that way you always had fresh mules and you always had a fresh crew. Anybody have any questions right now? If you like, you can go up on top and see how we steer the boat. You can do that if you like.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Stay in place.
No, we're not. Mules won't be with us at all. But I'm sure the next year we'll have. So this is the tilt deck, and this is the tiller. Now, you see on some boats, the tiller is high, so you push it with your arms and your shoulders. Well, 6 hours of doing this, because you're constantly moving this, 6 hours of that's a lot of work. So the lower ones like this, just straddle it. Then you move it with your legs. Most of the time you're just doing like this, because it's like driving a car, you're always making small corrections. And so that's how you do it. Anybody want to try it? You would just line up with the bow string straight ahead of you, and you'd point at something in the distance, try to keep a straight line going to that. And that's how they do that. Cool.
That's easy to say.
It is. It is. Especially, you've got the mules pulling from the tow path, but it's set up in such a way that the mules, when they're pulling, they're not pulling off to the side so much. They're more pulling in a straight line. So there is some pull to the right. You always have the correct for it, but it's not as bad as if the tow rope were attached to the bow stem and in the middle of the boat. That's a recipe for disaster. The boat would just keep going to the side. Yep.
They probably, like the Amish, for instance, probably get so used to it that they, because that's how the Amish creates a straight road and move across fields, people horses.
A good seasoned canal boat mule is worth its weight in gold. Because if they knew the tow paths, they'd know if there's a problem, and they would work the hoagie, and the hoagie could take. Well, like let's say there's a snake on the tow path. Unlike horses who would rear back and run through them, and then you'd have a runaway boat, the mules would just stop. They'd look back at the hoagie. Hoagie would come out, he'd get a stick, and flip it off the tow path, and the mules would be on their way. So, yeah, mules smart, and if they'd taken these tow paths 3 or 4 times, they were pretty useful. Now, our mules, Sally and Molly, we've had them for 18 years, and they know every inch of this. They're not shy about telling us if there's something wrong. You know, they just stop. They won't go until we fix the problem. You know, if there's a hole in the tow path someplace, like here, you know, down here, we've got our turtles making their nests, and if the boat is running, you come out there every day and smooth that out, because otherwise the mules would walk over there, they'd see that hole and they say, I'm not walking there. And they just stop.
Mule.
Yeah.
Horse.
Yeah.
What do you think will be running next year?
Yeah. We've been assured that they're going to do everything they can to make it happen.
We're going to come down this year, never got around to it.
Now they used to, up here on the top of the boat, I mentioned the lady was sleeping up there, and that did happen. People would do that, but there's always the danger of a low bridge and somebody turning over too much and falling off the boat. So it wasn't recommended to sleep up here. But they did have dances. Up on top of the boat. So, you know, in the evening after supper, you know, they come up here and there's always somebody with a fiddle or a squeeze box or something. They'd be up here and they'd be playing music. And the steersmen would call the dances because they were all square dances or contra dances. So they all had to have a caller. And the steersman was the caller. So there was one call that he made that was very important for the safety, because these people are twirling around and stuff, and they've got one eye on the edges here so they don't fall off. But that one call was the word bridge. And when he said bridge in the middle of the call, he didn't even have to yell it. He just, you know, like any other call, it's a bridge. And everybody would fall down to their knees. And he would do it so, you know, they would be able to look. I mean, they would do it, you know, far enough in advance that they could make preparations. And if they saw that the bridge was, yeah, maybe a little lower than most of them, you know, they might have to lay down flat. But they had room, they had time to do that. And the other thing was, if, you know, your boat's only traveling at 4 miles an hour, that's not very fast. But that bridge isn't going anywhere. And so if you hit that bridge at 4 miles an hour, that's going to hurt you. And if you're standing up, it's going to knock you right into the canal because your center of gravity is high. If you're on your knees and you get hit, you'll fall over and you'll be hurt. You won't be wet. So, yeah, there was one fellow who was relating a story about they had stopped at Dayton for the night. The captain had to pick up some more cargo or something, so everybody was able to get off the boat and spend the night off the boat if they wanted to. And this fella and a couple of other people on the boat went to a dance hall. And they were doing some square dancing over there in the hall. So they were dancing up the storm. And all of a sudden the caller said bridge. And half the people in the place fell down onto their knees right there on the dance floor. So he said, yeah, we knew which people had ridden canal boats. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah. If you want to go back.
I'm not gonna go up and dance, but.
If we want to go back down there, I'll play a song.
Okay.
Bridge.
Yeah, Brent.
Boss will not be happy if I was letting people out on the roof. name's Sally and Molly, and they've been with us for 18 years. And in fact, I had to put their names in the song because they're smart and they know me. I can be walking up behind them. Somebody's walking up behind the mules. They've got these blinders on, and they don't know who's walking up behind. You can tell when they start getting antsy. But they know the way I walk. I've worked with them for 5 years, 6 years. And they know the way I walk. So if I'm walking up behind them, they just know it's me. And they don't fidget or anything. And they know my voice. And so they'd know if I was singing about them. So I put their names in the song so they'd be happy with me. So you don't want the mules mad at you, especially if you're steering the boat, because then they go too fast or too slow. And either way, it's a problem with steering. Sally and Molly greeted the day, smelling coffee, Johnny cakes, and a bale of hay. They're rested and ready and full of pep. Cincinnati gets closer step by step. Hitch 'em up, let 'em go, those good old mules walk real slow. But they'll get you where you want to go, and so I open now. You gotta speak their language or they won't go, where they'll walk too fast for a canal boat tow. They'll walk with the hoagie along the path, and after 6 hours they can take a nap. Hitch 'em up, let 'em go, those good old mules walk real slow. But they'll get you where you want to go on this Ohio Canal. They could be pulling plows in a farmer's field and breaking up Ohio clay, but they'd rather be pulling our old canal boat, 'cause walking beats working all day. Hitch 'em up, let 'em go, those good old mules walk real slow, but they'll get you where you want to go on this Ohio Canal. Does anybody have any other questions?
So is that an original song or a
Yes.
traditional one?
Yes. Music was a big part of canal boat life. And there was always somebody on the boat who was making up songs, usually to tunes of the day. And they're making up songs about the things they saw and did every day. They were like musical diaries. And they weren't songwriters. They were just, guys with a lot of time on their hands. And so they never wrote these things down. And that's why there are so few real canal songs that are still around. On the Erie Canal, the old Erie Canal, there are probably only a half dozen songs from that canal. We have more from the Ohio Canal because a fellow named Pearl Nye, who was born on a canal boat, worked on a canal boat all his working life, and when the canal closed in 1913, he went and salvaged the cabins from a few boats and some more wood from the boats, and built a little house at a lot over in Coshocton, Roscoe Village. And they've got pictures of it there. The house is long gone, but they've got pictures of it over there. He called it Camp Charming. But when the Lomax brothers were going around the country and recording folk singers all over the country, folk songs, and documenting those for the National Archives, somebody told them about Pearl Nye. So they went there. I think it was Alan Lomax went over there and recorded a number of his songs. And he provided lyric sheets for them. He wrote out lyric sheets for them. And so those are all in the National Archives. So we do have more songs from the Ohio Canal, but nothing from the Miami and Erie Canal. But I figured that I would carry on the tradition. So, I write and sing songs about the canal and canal life. Sometimes most of the time I try to do it in a historical setting, like the Mule song, but sometimes I write songs about the things that we on the boat crew here see and do every day. And those are reserved for reunions and things like that. I don't play those in public. But not that they're bad. It's just that they don't have the same frame of reference as these other songs do. These other songs, anybody who ever worked on the canal, if they were still alive, would recognize some of the songs that I'm singing that we've done and recognize those things. But, you know, so there's a historical frame of reference there. But those are the ones that I sing most of the time. Any other questions? If any of you would like, I know you folks just came from up there, but if you'd like, I can go over and we'll put some water in the lock and you can see how it works.
Sounds like fun.
Cool.
So I'll just head up there and